What up, what up? This your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is a Community MMA. Big event tonight, UFC 292, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. We're getting into all those picks in just a moment. But first and foremost, let's get into Khamzat Chimaev. Right after 292 is over, you got big middleweight action in the next pay-per-view events. Because you got Israel Adesanya taking on Sean Strickland. Right? And if you're a Khamzat fan, you want Adesanya to win this fight, so there is no rematch possibility with Strickland. Then, just a few weeks later, Khamzat beats Paulo Costa. Again, if you're a Khamzat fan, Khamzat beats Costa, Adesanya wins, and the reason this is important is we have Adesanya saying that it's likely that Khamzat could skip the line over Dricus du Plessis, who was offered a title fight if he wins, and he was offered the fight, didn't take it. And now Adesanya doesn't appear happy about it and is ready to move on to other newcomers, right? So Adesanya has cleared the division. The only guys he hasn't fought really would be Sean Strickland, who lost to Pereira pretty easily, then Dricus du Plessis, and then Khamzat if he can win. Bo Nickel jumped in and said Khamzat has terrible wrestling. In other words, I mean, he used the word terrible, but you know what I mean. So we're going to get into these topics and more. But first, real quick, looking at the do list, right? You got Khamzat number 1, John Jones 2, and then the big action tonight, Aljamain Sterling number 5, taking on number 12, Sean O'Malley. You see Bo Nickel 2 at 13, so a lot of heavy hitters here on the do list. So big implications over the next few weeks. Aljamain Sterling can remain number 5 or even move up to 4 potentially with a huge win if he can get a finish tonight, where Yuri Prochazka is out of action right now, even though he's still top 5 material, even when he returns off that tough injury. So a lot of these things happening. So next, let's get into the prediction and full preview, really, for Khamzat versus Costa. I think you know where I stand. I've already explained it. But let's get into the full matchup, come back and break it down, and then get into some UFC 292 picks. In the middleweight division at UFC 294, this is your co-main event. You got Paulo Costa, the Brazilian, coming in at 14-2, taking on, you're not going to believe this, Khamzat Chimaev coming in undefeated 12-0, and it's about time the speculation is over, and we have a big fight in Abu Dhabi. This is a big fight. Khamzat, 1 inch taller at 6'2". He's 29, still in his 20s. Paulo Costa, 32. Both guys in their prime. Khamzat, 3-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Both guys very active. Khamzat, 7.3 significant strikes per minute to 6.5 for Paulo Costa. Now, when you get into the takedown game, Khamzat, 4 takedowns over the course of 3 rounds, so over 1 per round. Paulo Costa, nearly, or not even close to 1 over the course of 3 rounds. He lands 1 once every 6 rounds, so not very good there for Costa, but he does have good takedown defense, 79%. That allows him to play into the striking. Against Luke Rockhold, he won by decision in his last fight. He did lose to Marvin Vettori and Israel Adesanya. Before that, he beat Yoel Romero, Uriah Hall, Johnny Hendricks. And the Luke Rockhold win was a big one, but that's his biggest win of his career. Khamzat beat Kevin Holland in his last fight by submission. 2 minutes and 13 seconds in, he beat Gilbert Burns. He beat Li Jingliang, Gerald Meerschaert, John Phillips, and you can continue going back. And you got a 1 by almost every fight. First round, except Gilbert Burns was in the 3rd. And John Phillips took him into the 2nd, but it was 43-1. And John Phillips was the only guy to land 1 strike on him in his first 4 fights. So Khamzat is ridiculous. And you know here on the Community MMA, he's number 1 on our do list. So it's very difficult for me to go against Khamzat. It's just not going to happen. I think he beats anyone on the planet. Welterweight, middleweight, and potentially even light heavyweight later in their career. He should win this fight. He will win this fight. But most importantly, I'd like to see him dominate in this fight. In my opinion, Khamzat wins this fight likely on the feet. I mean, Paulo Costa does have good takedown defense. He's a big guy. It's going to be like the Gilbert Burns fight for Khamzat, because it's a big step up and he's got to get past all the question marks and things like that. Although he has no question marks, but in terms of the fans and the hype. So this is going to be like the Gilbert Burns fight. The difference is that he's not going to be depleted in weight. It's right at the weight he wants to be. And regardless of what things look like with Paulo Costa coming at Khamzat behind the scenes, things like that, Khamzat should mop the floor with this guy. Again, in my opinion, he'll move to 13-0, middleweight division, UFC 294. Yeah, so you already know we got Khamzat winning, and winning pretty easily. I mean, I know a lot of you saw the footage behind the scenes of Khamzat and Costa, and it almost looks like Khamzat backs down, but he's just being smart. He's just being smart. When that bell rings, when it's time to get into action, he's going to go right in on Costa, landing some big shots. He may shoot in for the takedown, we'll see, or he might just decide to strike with Costa and win it that way. But I don't see this thing going past the first round. Hoping for a big finish. I mean, Khamzat is huge and strong at middleweight. Some of you question his ability against Gilbert Burns. After that fight, he's squeezing down into 170. But at middleweight, he doesn't have to squeeze down. He might have to lose a couple pounds, but he'll be right back up to 195 by fight time. And he's going to look much bigger, massive in this fight. Now, as we move on to tonight, some big fights at UFC 292, right? Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. For the bantamweight title, you got Zhang Weili fighting Lemos for the women's strawweight title, and some other big fights. And here's the way we have it, right? And overall in the year, 213 and 124. Overall, main event 21-7, so we're 75% on the main events this year. We'll take that every time. But we're going to have to get started early. I mean, you look at their fights 12-11, we got Karine Silva and Natalia Silva. So we need Silva and Silva to come out and get wins there, because number 10, Gerald Meerschaert, is a question mark because he's a big underdog, but I think he wins. And then it gets even trickier as you get into the tough finale, right? Brad Katona and Austin Hubbard, we have winning, but those are coin flips because there's so much on the line. And both fighters in those fights have worked their way up. Even their competition worked their way up. Everybody's 2-0. So then you got Gregory Rodriguez, a.k.a. Robocop. I think he wins. Brad Tavares beats Chris Weidman, who's a little nervous coming off the injury. He's got to get his feet wet, and it's not possible till you get into live action. Then it gets interesting. Marlon Vera, Mario Batista, who takes on Damon Blackshear, who just fought last week. But the big three we always like: Ian Gary, whose name I spelled wrong there, I have to correct that; Zhang Weili, Aljamain Sterling. We always like the big three in the pay-per-view events. Those are our strength coming in at the end. So even if it's 500 at that point, we get two of those three, it's at least a winning night. I'm a little nervous about this card, and we've said that and gone 10-2 or 9-3 in the past, so you never know. But a little nervous because there's a lot of coin flips in this thing, and a tough finale. Fights 8-9 make it even tougher, because those could easily go against us. We'll have to wait and see how it shakes out. But it's going to be a fun night of fighting. We'll be here to cover it. So make sure you tune in fight by fight, giving you the reactions. For now, this is your boy Chris Cross. This is the Community MMA.